Get connected, Fitchburg. We're launching Fitchburg Connect, the city's new monthly e-newsletter that keeps you informed about all the events, services, and updates that matter to you. Get it in your inbox once a month. Our first edition is live now. Sign up today to get Fitchburg Connect.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're your hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every weekday, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can find all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues affecting you and your neighbors.
You're up.
Yep, I'm pulling up the agenda here. All right, I will call this meeting of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission to order. First item on our agenda is approval of minutes from our April 1st meeting. Those were included in your packet.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a second from Kelly. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those
Aye.
opposed? Those opposed, nay. The minutes are approved. Next item is public appearances for non-agenda items. You're here for you're here only for agenda items. Okay, we'll move on then. Move on to agenda item 4A, which is public works projects impacting the bike and ped network.
Just pull up real quick. I was expecting Ross might be here. I may have forgotten to send him an invite, but I just had one. Just one note that he sent me. The only big update he has for Public Works is that they're reviewing the agreement for the Safe Streets for All grant for the Vision Zero Safety Action Plan, hoping to have RFP issued for consultant this month. Yeah, so I can't answer questions on the process there, but that is moving ahead.
Okay. Nothing further on that. We can move on to.
Yeah, I have a commentary on that, and as it regards to, say, the comprehensive plan or zoning ordinance overhauls. As those things are being done, it would be nice if we would have a say in it before it's too late to make any changes. So if
in the comp plan of the zoning code overhauls, or the Vision Zero Safety Action Plan.
Since the Vision Zero is part of what we're advocating, we should be looking at the comprehensive plan and zoning overhauls to make sure, since we are advocating for bikers and pedestrians, we should make sure that those plans actually comply with this Vision Zero thing, rather than waiting till it's all done and then having to say, yep, I guess we approve. Land use is the biggest factor affecting pedestrians and bikers.
I'll make a note of that. I'll chat with, yeah, not in the planning department anymore, but I sit right by them, so I'll chat with them about that.
Would that involve a change to how those plans are? I mean, there are certain committees that they automatically reach out to during the process, and we're not on that list. How do we get on the list of commissions that look at stuff before it's just saying, yep, I guess it's okay?
I don't know. I can ask about that. I know that there have been a couple of instances where plans had a cumbersome number of committees reviewing them, and it really drew out the process pretty significantly. So there has been an effort to try and trim that down to the point that like even the sustainability plan only went to 1 or 2 committees. The bike and pedestrian plan only went to a couple committees. I suspect they won't want to add committees to the list, but what may be recommended is picking a different committee's meeting to attend and weighing in with public comments there. You know, certainly not. Yeah, I'll just have to look. I'm not sure what the plan is there, but I don't know if they at this point have an appetite to add more committees to approval processes where they aren't already there. It's something that if alders felt strongly about it, they could vote to add another committee as a referral.
I guess a question then, without necessarily a need to see the entirety of some of these rewrites and plans, is it possible just to parse out pieces that are more applicable to this group?
Yeah, whether formally or informally, I could talk with Deanna about whether there are plans to say bring relevant sections to bike and ped, or if that's something that I could bring and just get kind of informal commentary on.
Yeah. For instance, recently there was a meeting about the new development happening over across the street from Target, and it wasn't until the council was meeting that somebody asked, hey, why isn't there B-cycle as part of this? And had the Bike and Ped Commission taken a look at that development, we might have pushed for that early on instead of waiting till late enough that no one had even considered it.
We're interested in Steve.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it would be in order for the, once there's a draft available of one of these plans, it would be in order for the commission to have a discussion item on it and provide their comments, whether or not the council formally refers it to you.
Yeah, that's my thought. We're in the timeline. I'm wondering, would one of our meetings best fit to do that?
I don't know the schedule right now, so I couldn't say.
Maybe if we could figure out what the schedule is and figure out timing-wise which of our bike and ped meetings would be best to cover that, that would be ideal.
Sounds good to me, thanks.
So since we're still in item 4A here, I did mention the RFP for the Vision Zero Safety Action Plan. There's a question from Kelly about having BPC input on the comp plan and zoning update. So we're still in that agenda item. Is there anything else you want to add about that process?
Yeah, I guess just so everyone's kind of aware and on the same page, I'm gonna put out that RFP hopefully in the next 6 weeks. It's gonna be, for the Vision Zero plan, it's gonna be a kind of larger plan than any that we've done recently outside of maybe like the sustainability plan. But we're planning on having about 6 or 7 public meetings that the consultant would attend. So we'll have a steering committee. They'll have about 3 or 4 meetings. There will be members of committees and commissions, staff members, elected officials, members of the public who aren't involved in, you know, city governance, and other various parties involved in that steering committee, and those meetings will be open to the public. We won't plan to bring the draft plan to committees and commissions because we would have to expand the number of public meetings we'd have for the consultant. So we'll just have committee and commission members who aren't in the steering committee come to those steering committee meetings or the public information meetings that we're going to have and provide input that way. And we're planning on having a pretty robust public comment mechanism, like an online survey that anyone can comment on. So we're not really concerned about not having enough public input for this plan. So
This is Jim. What's your time frame?
So I'm gonna put out that RFP to get a consultant on board within the next 4 to 6 weeks. And then the consultant will probably start working on that plan within 2 to 3 months. And then I hope to have the actual comprehensive safety action plan finished and adopted by council in 18 to 20 months. So hopefully by the end of next year, we have a plan adopted by council. So that's update on that.
Can you say when Fitchburg Road will close and when Wayland Road will start?
So Fitchburg Road is in kind of a little bit of a fluid state right now. We're hoping to start construction this year, but that project will be finished by the end of 2027, whether we start construction in 2026 or in early 2027. Wayland Road, we're in touch with all the property owners, and we have all of the property that we need to construct it with 3-to-1 slopes off of the road. So we're going to advertise that project in the next 2 weeks, I believe, and then hopefully start construction there sometime in late June, early July, just based off that advertising schedule. We're still working to get more property so we can do 4-to-1 slopes. They're just, less steep slopes and safer for kind of car off the road departure crashes, and then they're easier for the residents to mow as well. So, and 3-to-1 slopes are acceptable under WSDOT standards for any like road departure crashes, but 4-to-1s are a little bit more recoverable is all.
Thank you.
Ross, I have another question about an update. Do you have news on the RRFB on Sighing Road?
The one by Swamp Creek Park?
Yeah, the one that was crashed into and took a long time to get replaced?
Yep, so the Forward Electric is the contractor there. We have an open purchase order for them to basically core out the breakaway bolts in that concrete island and put in some new anchors and breakaway bolts and reinstall an RFB. So that's on their schedule for this spring. Hopefully they get that done this month.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions related to Public Works? Thank you. Next is discussion on e-moto regulations. Did have one registrant on that. I really just wanted to give kind of an update since we did discuss this last time. Still looking to move a resolution through the process here. And just to recap, these are devices that don't meet the statutory standard of an e-bike because they're either the motors are too big, they exceed the wattage, or they're not governed to either 20 or 28 miles per hour, depending on the type of mechanism that accelerates the bike. But they're also they're not mopeds, they're not motorcycles, they fall into this legal gray area. And so there's the request from the city and the Bike Fed and a lot of other groups to have a statewide standard. Really, this is incumbent on the legislature to come up with a definition of e-moto for us. I don't know, Phil, if you had were you able to queue up the...
Yeah, let me give it a shot.
So actually, I had noticed the city of Verona had put out a little piece on social media. They're taking the approach of, it's probably legally the correct approach, which is they're not e-bikes, they're not mopeds or motorcycles, they're therefore just not legal to operate on public property. But they actually did kind of just a nice little informational video about the differences between the different devices. Let's see if it'll play.
Do this in the way that there's no sound
It's
there. Trying to avoid feedback, so I've got my speakers off. Maybe they need to be on. Apologies if we get feedbacky here.
No, you need to click. You need to click the share audio when you share your screen. You need to click the share audio checkbox in your screen share when you share the screen. That's
There we go. Thank you. Entire desktop. Enter into full screen. Might need you to show me. I don't see an option for share audio.
So unshare the screen and then try sharing it again.
We'll get there. Here we go. Thanks, Joe. Okay. Take two. Still not getting anything here. Mr. Yarbrough, any tips? We are sharing audio now.
Did the share screen parts?
Yep, in the share screen I selected share system sound.
And share audio on shared screen?
Sure did.
Yeah, just stop again. Try to restart down in the bottom right hand corner.
Yep, share sound.
Yeah, don't turn your microphone on.
Didn't do that.
You can turn your speaker on though. That might be.
It has to be like 1% on your speaker for it to share. Like if you're muted.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. I've got my.
Oh yeah, Phil is muted.
But I want to be muted because we don't want audio coming in from my microphone. When I try to have my speaker, I try to get my speaker on, I have feedback. Let me try.
Super low. It's like 1% on.
Let me do this. Sound input. Hold on.
I'm seeing on Reels now more people are doing captions. Like, it's way more common.
Yeah. Let's try that. Yeah.
Whether the captions are correct or not
Sure.
is another story.
Yeah. They're like AI
Yeah, I
generated.
got my mic all the way down, but as soon as I turn my speakers on here, I'm getting feedback, so I don't want to do that, but we're also not getting audio from here at all.
I didn't even put today.
Oh, there's
got
a lot of
captions.
confusion about e-bikes.
AC
It
Smith.
seems similar, but the laws are different. Let's break it down.
3 different classes of e-bike.
Pedal assist up to 20 miles an hour.
Second class pedal assist and throttle assist up to 20 miles an hour. The third class of e-bike pedal assists up to 28 miles an hour. First, it's important to know that e-bikes are considered bicycles in Wisconsin, so all the rules of the road apply. E-scooters are also legal when following all the rules of the road and ridden responsibly. But e-motos, sometimes called electric mini motorcycles, are different. One of the easiest ways to tell is that e-motos do not have pedals. They have foot pegs instead. They're not legal on Verona streets, sidewalks, or bike paths. They can only be used on private property with permission, and riding one in public will result in police contact. Whether you're riding an e-scooter or an e-bike, safety comes first. Wear a helmet, obey traffic laws, stop at stop signs, and watch for others. Our streets and trails are shared spaces. Ride responsibly to keep everyone safe. So courtesy of the Verona Police Department. Sorry, I couldn't get the sound figured out.
Can you share a link to that via email or something?
It is in the packet. There's a link right under this agenda.
Oh, is it? Okay, great, okay, thanks.
Yep. We probably missed some really nice music.
Yeah. So, it sounds like they're doing some good, like, PR work. I'm wondering, are they, as a department, it doesn't seem like they're changing policies, they're just enforcing.
They're just doing, it's just good communication there.
And I'll say, going out to Verona a lot for school functions, like Verona has a pretty bad emoto problem. Like it's mostly, I would say, individuals who are not yet of legal driving age, and that has become that's their means of transportation now, and not following the rules of the road. And I think Verona has just had a significantly larger problem with them, and I think that's why they're just taking the enforcement approach.
So there's not a minimum age. I mean, there's obviously a massive gap right now for e-motor regulations in general, but there's not a minimum age for riding them.
They're not legal, so no. Like,
You can't ride them at any age?
No, yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned legislation, like, where, do we have a sense of what state legislators are pushing?
I'll invite Steve up since he registered on this as well. I think Steve and I have met with a couple of people. I know the Bike Fed is meeting. This is a topic that's in the Gov's Bike Council, so Senator Chris Larson and Representative Lee Snodgrass are both on that. They've expressed an interest in being a part of actually authoring a solution to it. They've talked with a few other members. Steve and I had a pretty good conversation with Representative Udell. He seems to be on board with something.
Okay.
But I think really what we need to do is define what they are, because I think that's one of the key problems we're having is we don't want, I think communities are starting to go around and try to define them themselves, and I think that's going to be very messy to expect city staff to define what this motor vehicle is and then to have it be consistent with any other municipality.
The problem is going to be that the ones that cannot be registered because they do not have VINs are not going to be legal. After that, people have to be, I think where we want the state to come in is with education and enforcement. For example, a law that they can't be sold into the state if they can't properly be registered. These high-powered devices are not going to be available to people without driver's licenses. Right now, they're not legal in any circumstance, but they could be legal if they're registered as motorcycles or mopeds, and that will require registration and licensing, and of course being 16. So I think that's where we're going to go. I don't think that there's going to be a classification that's going to allow them to go on paths or be ridden by children where mopeds and motorcycles can't be now. Do you agree, Andy?
And that's where it'll end up. And just for some context on some of the speeds these things can go, I mean, they can do 45 plus miles per hour. They're not e-bikes. They're significantly faster than that and heavier than that. And they really are more akin to, they're just kind of a low-powered motorcycle compared to like a bike.
It was the e-motors that we were having the struggles with over at the mountain bike trails last year and year before, right?
Well, mostly, yeah.
Mostly.
I think there's some concern about class 3 e-bikes as well.
Primarily it was
primarily e-motos.
And is this simply a state level thing, or is there like
national.
federal
national
talk?
Yeah, I think the preference would be to have one national standard, but barring that, I guess we'll have to do 50 statewide standards.
Yeah, that's messy as well.
And the Bike League is working to provide uniform statewide uniform standards. Like, you know, it was fragmented, but generally most states almost all states have the 3-class system now in statute. It would have been much better for the feds to do it, but there's really no hope for the feds because the Consumer Product Safety Commission, which would have jurisdiction, has only 1 seated member out of its 5, and so they can't have quorum. The administration is not appointing anyone, so it's basically defunct. Under a future administration, we could hope for national standards.
Yeah, because I feel like if Wisconsin makes them illegal and sets a standard and says you can't import or sell into the state, people will still bring them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the federal would be much better because then they could control them at the borders.
And I think the other piece that when talking with the Bike Fed and others that would like to have included would be some sort of consumer protection piece. Because I mean, I can tell you there's stores you can go to right now and see these on the floor and they'll say, you know, e-bike on them. It's like part of it too would be to make it clear, like you can't advertise this as an e-bike. You know, e-bike has an actual distinct legal meaning and this isn't that.
Does this legislation at the, like, kind of tentative legislation at the state level, does it seem like it's likely to pass?
We do have a Republican who is willing to be a co-author. She doesn't know anything about the issue, but she understands the problem she doesn't have a full solution, but she's willing to put her name on a solution. So the fact that we have people on both sides of the aisle, I think is good. We won't have anything in 2026, I'm certain.
Yeah, since the legislature's not back till January of 2027, so that's kind of where that's our timeline, is we're looking to need something ready by January of next year.
In the meantime, the basic holding action is to prevent bad local legislation.
And then that's also happened where in the public's eye, they're all e-bikes, and then it kind of becomes people showing up at a city council meeting saying, I don't like these e-bikes, do something about it. And so you don't want the municipality banning legitimate e-bikes, you know, because they're actually mad about a different class of device.
Oh, you should say something about the MPO.
Yes, and then the Madison area, Greater Madison MPO is working on standards for e-moto regulation. So they're actually, yes. And they're actually speaking to Gov's Bike Council at our next meeting as we're going through this process, just to see what their guidance looks like.
And the MPO is being very frank with all of their constituent communities and saying, hey, please do not legislate this yourselves before we get a statewide solution for this, because that will, fracture everything like you've been saying.
Steve, what is your sense of how many municipalities are trying to do that?
There's 3 I'm aware of.
Was it Wanakee and
Farmland, Oregon.
Oregon? Yep.
Oregon, okay.
So the MPO document is titled Guidance for Local Municipalities. And so they're basically, I read an earlier draft, they're kind of laying out the problem and saying, these are the solutions. The main thing we have to do right now is education, and we don't want a lot of local restrictions that are working at cross purposes. And we don't want to confuse e-motos and e-bikes.
Do you have a sense that those, at least the ones that are in Dane County, are doing that? Are they lumping it all together? Or?
The public certainly is.
Mm-hmm. Got it. I feel like the 2 in Dane County have, and actually I think Horicon as well, are putting things on hold, potentially waiting for a statewide standard.
Okay.
Okay, move on to item 4C, which is biking on sidewalks discussion.
Yeah, I would make a statement on this one. You are registered here, sorry. Steve Arnold, 2530 Hargey Street. Thank you for hearing my testimony. I believe that elements, I did not review our ordinances, but I believe that we need these elements. Generally, we think of a sidewalk as concrete and a multi-use path as asphalt. I think that that should be clear in the ordinance. What is a sidewalk and where these rules apply. I think a sidewalk should be defined as concrete except if it has a painted center line. Or signage permitting bicycles. Then it becomes a multi-use path. A multi-use path is asphalt, at least 8 feet wide. We should never make new 8-foot wide multi-use paths. They should be 10 foot wide to allow two-way traffic. But there are in the city 6-foot multi-use asphalt paths that should be considered sidewalks. We should probably, while we're at it, defining our cycle tracks, which are cycleways and do not permit pedestrians except to cross. Our cycle tracks are green concrete and they are in Uptown. I think we should permit children less than 11 years old and adults accompanying them to ride on sidewalks. I think that zoning restrictions or definitions that involve zoning are not useful because the public generally doesn't know about zoning. Any setback restrictions, I believe, so we know that Madison says you can ride on sidewalks except where buildings abut the street. The reason for that is that if a building is abutting the sidewalk, I meant to say, you don't have any room for error. You can crash into the building. That should apply also to hedges and fences and any other kind of obstruction that's along the sidewalk. As far as geographic restriction, I think that our ordinance, I know ordinances that make recommendations are problematic. Generally, I've been told that we should either prohibit things or allow things, but recommending things is not a good idea. Nevertheless, I think that our ordinance should recommend against, even if they permit sidewalk riding, it should recommend against it. The reason that we want to allow sidewalk riding at all is basically for children and to prevent pretextual police stops. So that's the reason for allowing sidewalk riding, not because it's safe. It's almost always safer to ride in the road. I think that we should probably not allow sidewalk riding if the adjacent street. So sidewalks run along streets, let's be clear about that. Pedestrian ways that do not run along sidewalks, like along streets, like through parks and so on, are not sidewalks. So a sidewalk is next to a street, and if the street is 25 miles an hour or less, we should not allow, in my view, sidewalk riding. If it's 30 miles an hour or less, it has a bike lane, we should not allow sidewalk riding. And if it's 35 miles or less with a buffered bike lane, we should not allow sidewalk riding, or at least recommend against it. So that would be my input. And I'll provide these notes to Andy to put into the record.
Thanks. If you have any questions, sorry, I didn't type them up.
No, that's fine.
Any questions on my testimony?
So this was very educational. I appreciate it. I mean, I knew that just philosophically the idea of like riding on sidewalks, and that, you know, if there is infrastructure to ride on the road, like that should be used instead. I'm looking at this chart. I'm also looking at the laws, and I'm wondering how much of, like, if we set policy, is going to be something that the public can just easily comprehend, you know? Because, like, even that last part where it's like 35 and under, 30 and under, like, like, how is an average resident gonna know that or convey that to their kids? And then also, I guess my other broad question, I know we don't have the police department here, is like, does our police department even enforce this? Is this a common issue? Like, or do you see a lot of people riding on sidewalks around the city? Yeah, so those are kind of my two thoughts, concerns, questions.
It's very common to ride on sidewalks, for example, along McKee Road, on Fish Hatchery Road, over the Beltline, where we don't have a multi-use path, we have sidewalks on those bridges. Of course, that's not technically in Fitchburg. So basically, people will ride on sidewalks when it's unsafe to ride on the road, when they feel unsafe. The problem with riding on sidewalks, even in Fitchburg, where we do not have a lot of pedestrian traffic, and by contrast, I have a photo that I took back when I worked on campus of several people riding on sidewalks in front of mechanical engineering and materials science along that slopey part of Johnson coming from Campus Drive during class changing. And sidewalks are just packed with people, and somebody is biking down the sidewalk with a burly. And but we don't have that kind of problem here in Fitchburg. It's quite rare to encounter busy sidewalks with pedestrians.
Yeah.
But even when we don't have pedestrians who are operating at much lower speed, we have driveway conflicts. And bicycles approach driveways much faster than pedestrians, and drivers are not looking for bicycles on sidewalks, and they can be going either direction. People generally are pulling out of driveways, and they're only looking for traffic coming from the side of this, from their left as you face the street. They're not looking at all to the right, and they're not looking for fast-moving things. So driveway conflicts are the main problem with sidewalk riding in Fitchburg.
I don't think we have any, I'm not familiar with any any sort of existing practice of police stops relating to biking on sidewalks. I think this is something where the goal would be to be proactive and not reactive. Yeah. If there were to be any kind of change in policy or behavior, there's not a concern right now that I'm aware of.
I do think a big part of that is a lot of our older residential neighborhoods don't have sidewalks anyways. So there's a large portion of the city where there's just no opportunity for there to be riding on sidewalks at all. So, but as we build out more neighborhoods with sidewalks, it's going to become a bigger issue. So.
Yeah, and we hope we have more walkable neighborhoods and
yes,
more traffic.
I can zip through the slides real quick here.
Yeah. One more thing I forgot to mention, which is that we should permit bikes on sidewalks to access bicycle parking.
So just a
in terms of current laws, under state statute, you cannot ride a bike on a sidewalk unless the municipality proactively has an ordinance allowing it. Other than, there are some requirements about yielding to pedestrians and audible signals when passing. But other than that, municipalities are generally free to kind of set whatever other regulations they want in terms of age, geographic location, land use, it's up to the municipality to have any other stipulations that they want. Because Fitchburg has not adopted an ordinance under this, it is not legal to ride a bike on a sidewalk in Fitchburg. And then as part of the bike and ped plan, that was one of our action items, sort of for immediate action, is to come up with a policy related to that. So I did do a little dig.
This is Jim with a question about the age requirement. You know, it seems kind of counterintuitive to me to say, oh, 11-year-olds and under, they can do it, but 12, once you turn 12, you can, I mean, what kind of precedent are we setting for your kids if you say, oh yeah, you can run on the sidewalk, you know? I think we need to say it's just illegal for anyone. I don't like that 11 and under, you know, I think that should just be anyone. I don't really like that whole.
I think the goal is to create a situation where people who are learning to ride, and this is typically kids, and you're identifying a fair concern with this is that it can feel kind of arbitrary, where kids are learning to ride bikes, even on a 20-mile-an-hour residential street. There are increased safety risks if they don't have the balance, the skills, the awareness yet of what's going on around them, and so allowing younger kids who are not as adept to ride on the sidewalk is a safety matter for them. But it's a fair question about what's the appropriate age where you would cut it off, and yeah, I think that's something that would have to be discussed and wrestled with.
Yeah, notice Greenfield says 12, Milwaukee says 10, Steve's recommending 11. I'm wondering what, like, I don't know. I mean, my two kids probably learned around 7 years old, but I have no idea, like, what would even be the appropriate age to do this.
Even then, I've got an almost 10-year-old who it's situationally dependent. Like if we're just in a residential neighborhood, then no. But if we're going down McKee Road, I don't really want him out in a bike lane there.
Yeah.
I'm a certified league cycling instructor, and the national curriculum teaches developmentally that kids who are generally up through age 8 should not be on the roads under any circumstances. 8 to 11 kids can ride in the road if they know how to ride, can hold their line, and are with an adult. And kids 11 and older generally have the situational awareness and knowledge of rules of the road if they've been trained by their parents and have the skills that they can cycle on the roads safely themselves without adult supervision. So that's why that number was picked. And of course it depends on the kid individually and the amount of experience they have. You know, I'd be much happier with Teddy riding in the road than a lot of kids because he's got a lot of experience and he's had a lot of training. Those are the round numbers that we use to advise parents. Kelly?
I would just ask everybody to raise your hand if you can perfectly identify the northern border of Fitchburg, where we meet Madison. So you know every spot where on one side of the street you're in Fitchburg, and if you cross the street you're in Madison. There's probably very few people in our city who can do that. So my suggestion is that we adopt Madison's policy. Again, speaking of Steve's concern about policing issues, nobody knows in that most highly populated part of our city. No one knows when they're in Madison versus Fitchburg. So it feels like the best way to make sure that we're not causing policing issues potentially is to make sure that our rules match what Madison has.
In the
I would
interest
agree with
of
that.
time, I do want to keep going through the slides and then.
Yeah,
Because I think some of this stuff is also addressed with some of your slides.
yes, I think so. So then, actually, you can pop to the next one. Really, just the next two slides are comparison of municipal regulations. I just went through and looked at most of Dane County. So Verona and McFarland actually have one copied the other. They have identical ordinances. They're using a wheel size standard for who can ride on the sidewalk. It's meant to be sort of a de facto age standard, although with some newer e-bikes actually do have wheels that would probably be under 20 inches. Village of Oregon has kind of a pretty much wide open. You can bike on a sidewalk wherever, other than it has to be single file and at a low rate of speed. Middleton and Madison both use a setback. Madison has buildings that are abutting the sidewalk. Middleton uses within 5 feet of the sidewalk, to Steve's point of you don't want somebody to open a door from a building and have a bike right there and no place for the bike or the pedestrian to go. Sun Prairie, Monona, and Mount Horeb have very similar ordinances where they generally allow biking on sidewalks, except that they have in their ordinances defined geographic areas where you can't ride on a sidewalk. In effect, they're kind of getting at what Madison and Middleton are. If you go look at the areas, it's their downtown business districts where buildings generally abut immediately onto the sidewalk. And then Shorewood, Maple Bluff, and Windsor do not allow it. Interesting, so Shorewood and Windsor are like Fitchburg in that they just don't have an ordinance allowing it. Maple Bluff actually takes the extra step and they have an ordinance explicitly stating you cannot ride a bike on the sidewalk, despite the fact that it's already illegal under state law. Yeah. And then the Wisconsin Bike Fed was very helpful getting the information from Milwaukee County. Generally speaking, biking on sidewalks is allowed, other than kind of similar where there's certain provisions where specific areas can't be, where you can't do it. Village of Greendale, you can't do it they have a, similar to Sun Prairie and Mount Horeb, they have a specified business district. West Allis uses the central business district, which they don't really define what that means, but that's what they use. Yeah, and then again, there's some different age restrictions, less than 12, less than 10. And so really, I think, go to the next slide. I think the hope is, I guess one, there's just a question of should Fitchburg adopt an ordinance allowing the operation of bicycles on sidewalks? We said we were going to as part of the bike plan that we just adopted, but I guess that could still be an open question. And then if yes, are there any of these factors like age, zoning, setbacks, geography, that we want to include in those? And so I think the hope is that we can use kind of the remainder of our time here to see if we can at least get some sort of general broad consensus that then staff can take back and work with our legal department to actually start crafting an ordinance. I will say I did meet with the city administration, so with Chad and Adam about this. I think Chad was looking back at probably his police department days, and I guess to answer your question, his view is no, we're not enforcing it now.
Yeah.
And so he was almost taking the attitude of we had kind of de facto just allow it because the police department doesn't enforce it. But then he also said, whatever we do, please make it simple and make it easy for the police department to understand what it is and make it easy for the general public to understand what it is.
Yeah.
And so I think for example, there's one where, I forget which one it is, suburban Milwaukee community it was. Like you couldn't bike on adjacent to parcels that were zoned business. It's like that, no one knows the underlying zoning code. That's just a disaster. Or even getting into some of the setbacks of like, I think his view was, people understand immediately it butts, but once you start getting into 5 feet or 10 feet, like, then you're confusing people. And I think Chad was taking the view of let's make it as simple and broad as possible, and if we have specific problems with specific areas, go back and address those.
I think you'll.
Yeah, this is Jim. I would say, keeping it simple makes a lot of sense. The whole, this street has this traffic light and this has this speed limit, and that's going to make it really complicated and really. So, my thing is, from a pedestrian safety perspective, we should say it's not allowed. I mean, if you want to keep pedestrians safe, you want to make more pedestrian safe community, it should not be allowed. Because the public is going to say, oh yeah, now we can ride our bikes on the sidewalk, great, and they're not going to care about what's the speed limit on this road and what's the speed limit on this road and whatever. It's oh yeah, we can now ride our bikes on the sidewalk, and it's already a problem on multi-use paths. I mean, I walk through the paths here at McKee Farms Park all the time, and bikes coming up, and it's already a problem on multi-use paths, and now we're saying we're going to allow it on sidewalks. It's going to be more of a problem for pedestrians.
Mark?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of comments. I talked to the police when I was chair of this group a year ago, and I talked to them again 2 months ago at a community event, and they basically said, unless they get, which is what Chad told you, Andy, unless they get complaints, they pretty much ignore folks riding on sidewalks. I agree with Kelly's point. You go into Madison, you're not sure where you're going, where those borders are, unless you see those signs. That's going to be confusing. Keeping whatever we do simple. I understand Jim's comment, but there's certain times I would not feel safe myself riding on McKee or riding on Fish Hatch. And quite honestly, I do it now. I ride in the sidewalk when I'm on those roads when there's not a multi-use path there. So I think whatever we do, we got to also educate the public, but I would bring the police in and talk with them because, again, trying to enforce something that has 5 or 6 little things in it and then trying to educate the public is going to be a problem. So if everybody around us is allowing it, we need to figure out a way to allow it that won't cause a bunch of trouble, and respect also what Jim said, because when I go by pedestrians on the multi-use path, I say passing on your left or on your right. And that's what a lot of bikers don't do. So I'm back to education as well as whatever we do, but we need to get on this. It was raised 5 or 6 years ago. And I think we need a policy on it, Andy. So putting it up as a priority is the right thing to do, but I would get everybody's opinion as it gets ready to come forward. So my 2 cents, take it or leave it.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be repetitive of things, but like, I see Kelly's point, and also I'm looking at Madison's policy and wondering if that is something that's comprehensible without public awareness of it. I'm also wondering how many buildings may apply to that 5-foot setback rule. Like, I don't think that's
in Fitchburg, very few.
Very common. So, I mean, essentially, that's a de facto, like, you can ride on the sidewalk law.
In Fitchburg, I think where we have buildings that close to the road or to the sidewalk, it's in our newer subdivisions where we have decent bike infrastructure on the roadway also.
I would think there's a couple places in Terra Vesa.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Cahill, Maine, the backside of the building that like Great Dane is in.
Yeah, and I think what this ultimately comes down to is if we want people to adopt certain behavior, there has to be either signage or public awareness through education, and I just don't have a sense of what that signage would properly look like here or in other municipalities.
Madison has them. They have signs in areas where it's not allowed, where it's been a problem. They will put a sign that says like, please walk bicycles on sidewalks.
So I think if there are places that maybe we identify as problem areas, then we should proactively as a commission alert our city leadership and staff to maybe put up signage. But I think to Mark's point, simpler is better. I don't have an opposition to the age restriction though. I think even if that's just guidance and not policy, we should, allow younger kids to ride on sidewalks, and riding on sidewalks should be permissible if people just don't feel safe, because there's not a bike lane or a multi-use path.
So just thinking about where we're at in terms of meeting times, is something that you were hoping to kind of put together a recommended policy during this meeting or another meeting, or get a couple people volunteering to draft ordinance language and bring it back to BPC, or have staff do something? Like what's the hope here?
Hoping to see if we could get consensus here, but maybe not too optimistic that we could.
Sure.
But we certainly could bring it back at our next meeting if we need to, if there is a smaller group that would like to come together and put together recommended language. We could certainly do that. I think the hope is to at least get an idea from the commission what it would like to see before actually going to Valerie and getting something drafted as like an actual ordinance.
And I think understanding, the one thing I was gonna say is that I've had a couple conversations internally, and it's kind of a split of opinions. Some is just draft something, just, make it allowable, it's not gonna be an issue, and if there are issues, we'll resolve it, and we shouldn't do this, it's not safe for pedestrians. And so I think understanding what those potential barriers and points of opposition would be to make sure that doesn't get in the way once something's actually being drafted would be helpful. And if it is, if the resolution is an age thing, or if it's a where bike infrastructure exists thing, just kind of understanding how to address that.
Make two more points. One of them is that I think we need a rule. I don't think it's acceptable to have things on the books that people routinely violate, because that breeds disrespect for all kinds of regulations. I'm blanking on my second point right now, so I'll, whatever it is.
To that point, then when it gets enforced, then it just becomes arbitrary. If the police aren't enforcing it 99% of the time, it just becomes arbitrary when they do.
Okay, just to add, one restriction that I am in favor of is designating if a protected bike facility does exist, like a multi-use path, a cycle track, or a buffered bike lane, then sidewalks are for pedestrians. I think if the city has gone through the investment to say, hey, this is a designated bicycle infrastructure that's protected more than just a paint line on a road, use that, sidewalks off limits. But again, I'm also in favor of keeping it simple, so I don't want to muddy it too much for people to understand.
My other point was going to be that where we do have conflicts, it's really not an education or an enforcement problem, it's really an infrastructure problem. People need safe places to walk, and they need safe places to bike, and they need safe places to drive. And the fact that we don't have very many conflicts right now is because Fitchburg is very auto-dependent, not because, I think we aspire to be like Madison, where you can have nearby places to walk, and that's what we're trying to build in our new urban areas. So we just need to keep vigilance to make sure that people have the places they need to safely bike and walk and drive as we update infrastructure and as we build new neighborhoods. Trying to retrofit good behavior into bad infrastructure is always tricky and sometimes gives us bad choices. I would support the extension of Madison's rules. I don't like the fact that they don't, our smart code requires parking to be screened. so that if there is parking that's up to the street, particularly like a side street, then there's supposed to be a screen, like a fence or a hedge, and to block the view of the parking. And I would modify Madison's to not just say buildings, but in some way fences and hedges and stuff as well.
Next, I would say I'm kind of generally in favor of Madison's approach as well, just working downtown and seeing how it largely does work, that you occasionally do get people biking on a sidewalk that they're not supposed to be, like around the Capitol Square, but I would say it's actually fairly infrequent that you see people violating that. Most of them, because there's decent bike infrastructure, and in a lot of cases, I think where they've seen, so I work on Wilson Street, and that's one spot where they had to have signage because there was a problem, and Madison's solution was, well, we'll put in a multi-use path that's separate, so there's now a sidewalk and a multi-use path and a street that has bike lanes on it. And
to be clear, it's a sidewalk and a cycleway.
Yes.
Not a
not a
multi-use,
multi-use path. Yes,
not a
it's
multi-use
cycleway.
path.
And so I think, I personally feel like
I have-
this seems to work. Go ahead, Kelly.
I have one addendum to Madison's that might help deal with Jim's concern, and that would be to add the language that I don't remember what other community had that basically said, if you're on a sidewalk with your bike, you need to go slow enough to be safe for pedestrians. So whatever that language, like if we
I think that's the state
add
language.
that,
Right.
it was one of the communities had it in the far right column. If you could share the,
Oh, Village of Oregon, single file and at a low rate of speed.
yeah. That feels like a reminder that's worth putting in there to, to let bikers know that they are not really supposed to be the priority on those sidewalks, and they should really be yielding and being polite to any pedestrian on.
Well, and a lot of this will come down to education above ordinance. I think most people aren't aware that the state forbids bike riding on sidewalks. I didn't know it until I was in this role. I think if an ordinance is passed in Fitchburg, most people won't be aware. It will come down to education.
And I agree that most people are unaware of the state prohibition and Fitchburg's current policy, because I've talked with a number of people leading into this, including former alders who had different opinions of what Fitchburg's policy was. And it's like, well, Fitchburg lets it as long as you're under 16. People were telling me what the code was. I'm like, no, I've looked it up. I know exactly what it is. It's not correct.
It's like people are unaware that it's a state statute to give an audible warning on a multi-use path when overtaking.
And I think even though it's already in the state statutes on the audible warnings and that, I think that doesn't hurt to reiterate that in the Fitchburg ordinance. So if someone's looking at it, that it's all in one spot.
Maybe we make a cool video like Verona did about it.
Legally, there are many examples of us adopting state statute into the municipal ordinances. In addition to reinforcing the message, it also makes it a municipal violation. And therefore people come to see Judge Hamdi instead of having to go to circuit court.
Mm-hmm. So I think it seems like collectively we're sort of getting towards the Madison rule with some additional caveats. I mean, I can certainly work on trying to put something together that could bring back to our June meeting and see if that's acceptable to actually then move forward to legal for drafting. There's no objection to that. Then we can have a further discussion at our next meeting about it. Okay. In the interest of time, move on to agenda item 4D, which is, and thanks for the discussion on this item, by the way. The bicycle-friendly community redesignation discussion. Really just wanted to have this as kind of a placeholder. So our application's due in June of 2027, so we've got some time. But I really just wanted to kind of put this out here as a reminder that we do have an application that's due. Well, it's kind of first and foremost, it's a bike Fitchburg who completes the application and submits it. Just kind of as a reminder that I feel like we're a partner in that process, and to the extent that we can be helpful, especially with getting data or any policy changes, that if we're going through the process and realizing maybe we have deficiencies, we still have over a year to try to correct them. And to the extent that this body would need to be involved, that's why I wanted to kind of throw this item out there. But Steve,
can we get the goal this year, Steve?
So what we have been told,
think about that.
what we have been told over and over again, and we have been working hard schmoozing the 3 individuals at the Bike League, one of which, Chris Vaughn, works remotely from Minneapolis and came here, and we took him on a ride for Joe and showed him, you know, all around Fitchburg and stuff like that. So that was great. They really know us there. But I would say that the thing that they are concerned about is seeing specific, measurable, concrete contributions by the city government. They have several things in mind. One of them, of course, is the having a bike and ped coordinator, and they look at all the FTEs that are involved with bicycling and pedestrian support over all the departments, but they're looking for that, they are looking for 20 mile an hour speed limits in areas that where that's feasible and beneficial. I believe that the expansion of B-cycle is going to really be helpful. I think that the ordinance that we're going to reintroduce about designating the multi-use path system, we have 50 miles of multi-use path. That's like half of what Madison has, or a third maybe, but they have 10 times the population. What that will do is open up opportunities for private and nonprofit fundraising for signage, and also an opportunity for marketing. I mean, you know, you'll kind of look at the chamber and how they've marketed the B-cycle program and the Bike the Berg and the brewery ride there. They could be marketing our multi-use path system as a destination. So those are some of the things that I think we've talked about. We're about to talk about doing some more organized walking. The safety action plan is going to be huge in terms of the city's commitment. So I think that those are the kinds of things that they're looking for. Mark Hamilton and I will again take the lead in filling out the application. We have the experience, but we are very dependent on Public Works and the MPO for helping us with the statistics on our centerline miles of various kinds of facilities and other things like that.
So thank you for that, Steve. I'm wondering, at our last council meeting, we approved a lot of developments, and the question that Alder Jetzer asked to each developer was, are you including B-cycle in your building? I'm wondering if we could put maybe that into policy with new development, that like, almost like.
I think it should be in the land division ordinance.
Okay.
That we put up amounts of money in tax incremental financing to incent developers to do the right thing. They go under categories like supporting underbuilding parking or geotechnical remediation, but they're really just developer incentives. And B-cycle stations are like a rounding error in the kinds of money that goes into TIF projects. Every TIF district should be including B-cycles in their TIF project plans. So that's my opinion.
So I don't know what, I know that we do have expectations and conversations about bike parking in general, because B-Cycle is a private company that involves that financial partnership. I don't know if that changes the kind of whether it's okay to require that somebody financially partner with them, if that's okay.
I think you can just make it generic.
Shared.
And say, bike share.
Yep.
Okay.
And the other thing is that bike share is part of the transit system.
Sure.
And whether a city's transit system is a publicly owned or concession or completely private, even competitive. I mean, scooter share and dockless scooter share and e-bikes, is oftentimes more of let 1,000 flowers bloom kind of a thing. If you go to Seattle or Minneapolis, you trip over the things everywhere you go. Dock systems are generally tightly controlled by the municipality because the docks have to go somewhere. And so that's the system we have. But I don't think that the fact that it's a private system, we use contractors for things all the time in the public realm.
I agree with Ross. I think you can require a bike share, and if they choose to partner with B-Cycle, they can. If they want to somehow do their own thing, they can do that too.
That'd be weird, but yeah.
But Mark's got his
There is a standalone B-Cycle station in Manitowish Waters that people use, and they rent bikes for $18 a day, and they just go around the heart of Vilas County loop. Private company.
Go ahead, Mark.
Two quick things here. One, everything Steve said about the goal journey is in fact true. And I have also, with him, established that relationship. And I think I'm a little more optimistic. If we put this together right, I think we've done enough to move ourselves to gold. But I'm going to stay on I sound like a broken record, but the bike coordinator thing's got to be addressed in a manner that we will convince the bike league that we're there. The second point goes back to Joe's comment about requiring new businesses to put B-cycles in. They are, as Andy said, a private business. And I know they're kind of struggling right now to get through things. And we've got to ride with them in about 15 or about an hour that Steve's leading. And I think we can bring these things up with them, but they're not going to go put something there at a new development unless somebody pays the sponsorship. And our sponsorships are starting to run out as we hit 4 years or 3 to 5 years. I don't have the thing in front of me, but the bottom line is Chris is looking for more. Okay. Chris is looking for more sponsors right now before they put any more out here in Fitchburg is what I understand. And I think they also want to look and talk to us about the usage factors for some of the places they have it stocked now. So they're already into the system. As Steve said, it's both transit and it's bike ped. But we got to work with them because they're going to be the final say whether you put a B-cycle station at a new development in Terra Bessa, for example. So just beware of that. I've also suggested to Chris that we form an ad hoc group through the city with the chamber involved and Bike Fitchburg in the city that looks at how they're being used, what's going on, as Joe says, where are the new developments going on that we need to consider. So they want to have dialogue with us.
Yeah, so
they've gone through a big transition. So I'm sorry. So that's enough about that. Thank you.
Oh, it's a point well made. Are the city's contracts, the existing agreements we have with B-Cycle for all of these stations that were funded by the TAP grant expires at the end of 2027 or maybe September of 2027. Once that happens, we'll have to have conversations with them about whether we are re-upping that agreement. Under the current agreement, the city and the TAP grant, with a little bit of local sponsorship, certainly some strong support from the chamber, funded the purchase of these bikes and docks. But there was an agreement that the ongoing operations and maintenance and kind of management of the system cost was being waived by B-Cycle. We don't know that they will agree to do that again for the next round, so we'd have to talk with them about whether that's something they have the appetite for again. And to Mark's point, certainly one of the important factors there, I'm sure, for them will be ridership. If they're getting enough ridership to justify waiving those O&M costs, they'll do it. If they're not, then I don't know what that's going to look like. But yeah, we're hitting an inflection point in about a year and a half with Fitchburg's, at least the kind of city managed B-Cycle docks.
I would invite Chris to the next meeting. I'm sorry, I cut somebody off. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say another tool in our toolbox for as far as putting it in zoning code or land division ordinance and stuff like that is stuff like traffic management programs with our traffic impact analysis requirements for new developments. So right now I'm rewriting our traffic impact analysis guidelines. So basically every new development has to submit a TIA to basically manage all the traffic that they're gonna generate.
So it's one option they could pursue to.
And they can basically get some mitigation points for some of their traffic if they put in specific bike infrastructure or bus infrastructure or walking infrastructure.
Transportation demand management.
Yes. So that's just another tool in our toolbox. I'm already planning on putting stuff like that in there. Where if you have a B-Cycle station or bike parking or a multi-use path, you get a few extra points on your TIA, and you don't have to spend as much money to mitigate your vehicle traffic.
So there is currently
one last point. I'd invite Chris to the next commission meeting, and engage her, because, like I said, she's been talking to some of us, and we need to be sure we're all on the same page. This goes forward, and Steve and Andy and I are going to see her in a few minutes, so we can perhaps chat with her. So I got to run, guys.
We're here about 15 minutes, so.
Yeah, thanks.
I was just going to say that right now the smart code requires bicycle parking in certain uses in the smart code districts, but we don't have required bicycle parking in the rest of the city. So multifamily buildings and commercial buildings should have bicycle parking, and that should go into the zoning code rewrite. That shouldn't be bonus points for your transportation demand management. It should just be required. B-Cycle station, I agree with Ross that would be a good thing, along with, transit stops and other transportation demand.
I'll say, coming back to the agenda topic, since it's about bike-friendly communities, I think that Steve and Mark have done a really good job the last couple cycles of leading that process up and documenting everything and putting it into a package to submit to the League of American Bicyclists. They loop in staff as needed to fill in gaps and provide information. I would imagine if anybody wants to assist them with that, they'd probably welcome some additional hands. And we'll keep talking about that over the next year as we get closer to the application deadline as well.
Kelly?
I have one more comment following up on Steve's bike parking suggestion. It feels wrong to me that we have polling places that do not have bike parking. I wish there would be a requirement that there be at least some sort of bike parking at every polling place.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Okay, well, more to come on bike friendly. I think just to keep this as a standing item from now until we submit it, just even if all we do is spend 5 minutes saying where are we at, I think it's good to keep it in front of everybody. In the interest of time, I will be very brief on the biking, walking event promotion. So myself, Logan Reichstead, Phil Jetzer, and Ryan Hutter have been meeting just to discuss trying to do more biking and walking events. Actually, Kelly was going to ask if we will get together. So we're just trying to put together a comprehensive list of educational biking and walking events, and hopefully we'll have more information to come.
So I've been in communication with Alder Lattice, and we are potentially gonna try to put together an event with Ag and Rural Affairs to do like a bike of different farmlands.
Okay. We should loop you in on we're having that.
Yeah.
I think we might be working in parallel here.
Okay, yeah, let's invite me to whatever you're doing, and then we can.
In particular, I think we've been trying to take advantage of the Badger Talks group to find UW faculty who have something interesting to say about a topic and then working it in. So one of the first ones we're hoping is to do a Dunn's Marsh walking tour with like an expert in wetlands who can then actually like talk about the physical features of the marsh and how it works.
That'd be awesome.
But we've also talked about, there's a faculty member who studies like glaciation and can talk about like, well, this is a moraine and this is a drumlin and here's a kettle, and like actually take a biking tour and show, like talk about the features, but then actually go bike out and look at them.
That'd be really cool.
Moving on.
It'd be really nice if some of those biking events were biking and pedestrian, so you could have a bike component and also have people who want to just come walk it too could have a walking component of it as well, kind of combined event for people who want to do either one.
Okay, I think we're trying.
I agree.
I think in some ways we're doing like, some of them were probably either or, and I think we're trying to focus more on doing pedestrian-based ones and keeping them fairly compact.
The Dunn's Marsh one,
like the Dunn's Marsh one,
pedestrian
or
too.
we've talked about, I think the hope is to focus more on pedestrian ones, but there are a few where like just the things are geographically separated by a large distance, like Ag and Rural Affairs or glaciation where you kind of have to bike. But anyway, the agenda item 5, report from the department. 5A is the council update. Joe?
Yeah, I just wanted to alert that the capital improvement plan schedule is on the website. So just one date to keep in mind is that July 6th of this year, amendments are due to the finance director. So if there's something in mind that our commission, obviously the CIP hasn't been released, but if we're, it'll be released in June, and if between June and July, our commission sees something that's worth an amendment, please let me know. We can have a discussion about sponsoring someone.
Thank you. Any questions for Joe? Okay, 5B, staff update. Phil?
Yeah, so like the Berg Challenge has begun. If you haven't already signed up for that, look into it. May 15 is International Bike to Work Day. There's going to be a bike ride with the mayor starting at McKee Farms Park. I think you know more about this maybe than I do right now. We do have a vacancy on the Bike and Ped Commission. Ryan Husselman was needed to step down. So I don't know if there's ongoing recruiting or if we have somebody going through the approval process right now.
There's someone going through the approval
There's somebody going through the approval process. Okay, so we were one member shy this meeting. Hopefully for the June meeting, we'll have our full slate of commission members again. In the interest of time, I can keep the update pretty brief, and that's about it.
5C, Bike Fitchburg update.
Our next meeting, our meetings are always open to all, and that's how we recruit new board members and volunteers. But normally we meet on the 4th Monday, but that's Memorial Day, so we'll be meeting on the 18th instead of the 25th. There will be, we should know next week which of our 4 applicants for bicycle-friendly business got awards. So far we are at 100%, so we hope that they all get them. We are working on a June 3rd deadline for the next round. Cycling Without Age, our new nonprofit that's spinning off of Bike Fitchburg, had a great event at the Fire Station #1 with the Wisconsin Downs Association. Gave 27 rides to the kids and their family members. We've got our next date will be later this month at Courtyard at Fitchburg so far. Bike Week is coming up. Already mentioned, Phil already mentioned Ride to Work with the Mayor. So happy Bike Month, May is Bike Month. Next Tuesday, the mayor will be making the proclamation for Bike Month, Bike to Work Day, and Wisconsin Bike Week. Bike to Work Day is the 15th, and that will start at, we'll gather at 7 a.m. at McKee Farms Shelter and leave at 7:15 for City Hall. When we get here, we will have short remarks and a photo op and give out our Bicycle Friendly Business Awards to the awardees from this month and from February. Madison Bikes, our peer organization north of the border, celebrates Madison Bike Week starting Sunday the 30th. Everybody else in the state celebrates Wisconsin Bike Week starting Sunday the 31st. So there's a lot of Bike Week events. Tuesday we will have our commuter station at the roundabout, the Velo Underround, for bagels. Wednesday, Saris will be, with the assistance of Parks Maintenance, taking the grills and griddles down there to have brat cakes. So unfortunately, you'll be meeting at the same time. Saturday will be the brewery ride from starting at Hop House and going around the city. And we've already discussed the fact that we'll be working on bicycle-friendly community application over the next year.
Bike your brought to work day?
Oh, bike, yes. So Noah Sunderman and I will organize Bike Your Brat to Work Day. Saris will be giving away brat bucks for the first 50 or 200 or something people who arrive by bicycle. We leave, I believe it's at 5:30 a.m. from Pacific Cycles at the Southwest Path Bridge over the Beltline, and we go up 12-mile ride and end up where they open for Take Your Brat to Work Day, which is Friday of Memorial Day weekend. So that's our Brat Fest event. Thank you, Andy. You're all welcome to ride with us.
It's just so Wisconsin. Bike Your Brat to Work Day and brat bucks.
Brat cakes.
Brat cakes, love those.
Yep.
All right, move on to item number 6, which is announcements. Our next meeting is June 6th.
That's
We'll have,
Saturday, is it June 3rd?
it must be, what is it? June 3rd. We can fix that. I will note we'll have one educational item. So Phil, I think I mentioned this to you, the all kids bikes groups that they could come and shoot.
Oh, awesome.
Not come here, they're based in South Dakota, but they would be
Fun trip.
be a fun trip. They actually came in person to the Govs Bike Council.
Okay.
But did not plan to make 2 trips to Wisconsin.
I'll make sure I've got that ready for the agenda.
And the only request I had was that they be later in the agenda because they're on Mountain Time and didn't want to come to a 6:30 meeting.
So it'll be fun.
Otherwise, move on to item number 7, adjournment.
To adjourn?
Second?
Okay, motion second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.